Let's take a look at Gary Larson, creator of what is perhaps the greatest single-panel comic strip of all time, The Far Side. His life, his works, his impact, and more will all be deep fat fried.
Deep fat fried!
So before we begin, it should be noted that Gary Larson has been extremely, insanely resistant to his works being reproduced and displayed online. He's known to be quite adamant about this, although it seems like it's relaxed a little bit in recent years. Now, as someone making a video about Gary Larson and his comic The Far Side, I am going to have to show some of his material in ways that I believe are tantamount to fair use. However, if Gary Larson or an official representative thereof asks that this episode be taken down or amended or modified, we will do so.
Dude, this is just your way of trying to get Gary Larson to hit you up in your fucking inbox, dude.
Maybe he will.
Mr. Larson, please.
Mr. Larson, please.
If it's fair use.
So I've limited my depictions of his material to only when it's absolutely necessary, and I've used the very few pictures that you can find of him out there to kind of supplement visually what we need to see.
It's kind of sad that that a guy like Gary Larson thinks that we're somehow scalping his profits when essentially this would be looked at in other eras as a giant free commercial for your work that would probably put some money in your pocket.
And a lot of people actually, when he fucking so it seems like he's calmed down on this in recent times, but there was this time period where he was literally just going, Gary Larson was spending his time going around the internet hitting people with fucking cease and desist notices and, you're infringing on my copyright, all this shit.
If it's under fair use, then, I don't agree with him.
And then a bunch of his fans were like, fuck you, Gary. You don't even have a fucking official place for us to look at this online. So go fuck yourself, bitch. Basically, a lot of people were pissed. And then
rightfully so.
In response, he put up his own website. It's not he does not have any conveniently browsable repository of his stuff, but you can go there and there's every day there's a random smattering of his comics.
That's lame.
I guess it's not too bad, but there's nowhere you can just go and look at a in order repository start to finish. Here's The Far Side, unless you want to buy a book.
He'd probably make a fuck ton of money if he just, developed a website and design, got all his shit scanned in and we're just hey, everything I ever do is here for you to peruse.
All of his works have been transferred to digital. I know that much. He's got it. But, it's
he's just very litigious about.
He's very strange about how he releases his material. He's very protective of his material. Now, whether that's because of his stated reason of, this work is too personal for me to let other people control how it's displayed, or whether it's because of the, millions upon millions of dollars that he makes because of his rigid control of it,
Look, I understand him defending his intellectual property. I get that, but someone putting on an episode of a podcast or displaying it and showing it with the purpose of social commentary or critique or whatever, I don't think he gets to control the public use of something.
He doesn't.
So,
legally he doesn't.
Yeah. So you know what I have to say, TJ? You can kiss Gary Larson's ass, but fuck Gary Larson for that shit. I'll smack his little bitch ass face. Hey, Gary Larson, it's my duty if you try to fucking take this episode down.
Leave Gary Larson alone, Scott.
I'll bitch smack him if he tries to do it.
Don't insult Gary Larson.
Insult him all fucking day. He tries to take this episode down.
Your chance of getting Gary in your fucking DMs just went to zero, TJ.
Look, don't listen to Scotty. He's a mean person, Gary. Please reach out to me.
Not to me, Gary.
So this is the first comic. This is the first Far Side comic right here. It was published in. A lot of people think the Far Side debuted in 1980, but they're wrong. This is actually from December 31st, 1979. This comic appeared in the San Francisco Chronicle next to the TV listings.
That's basically 1980.
Basically, yeah. It's really weird because actually the comic begins on December 31st in 1979 and it ends on January 1st of 1995. So both began and ended right at the beginning of it began right at the end of a year and it ended right at the beginning of a year.
Damn.
So yeah, this was 1991. It's just kind of nestled there by the TV listings back when people used to have to look at TV listings to figure out what was going to be on. About by 1991, the comic was syndicated in more than 1,000 newspapers, which, in case you're of the Zoomer generation, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, that's like having like 30K followers on Insta or whatever. You know what I mean?
It's like it's more like having like 10 million or something like that.
3 million or some shit. Yeah.
And by 1995, the comic was, of course, gone. So ran from 79 to 95, but barely in 79 or 95 at all.
Like 15
really the intervening years.
Yeah, about 15 years.
Yeah. So its author, having grown weary of like the daily grind of creating a steady stream of new comics, I think us here on this show, as people who crank out content at the rate we do, kind of understand the weird pressures that are into like constant stuff, more stuff, create. You know,
yeah.
Be funny, more. He's just like, oh Jesus.
He's like, I'm a fucking millionaire many times over. Fuck.
It's like, I've made enough.
Bro,
I've made enough money.
All I know is, TJ, is this whole fucking shooting day better be over by 2:30 p.m. because Popeye comes on channel 44.
Oh shit,
that's true.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, we got to wrap this episode up, you guys. Got to watch Popeye.
Can't miss Popeye, man. I won't be able to see it till fucking next week. Jeez.
And I want to watch As the World Turns. I don't even know. I wish there was some kind of technology where I could watch both, but of course that doesn't exist.
Laverne and Shirley, I'm already missing that for this shit, man. Come on.
Ugh. Terrible.
People are talking, guys.
What am I supposed to do? Get a VCR? Those things cost an arm and a leg.
Those things are terrible.
How about a Betamax?
So even though he was known for these the one panel comics, his final comic actually is a rare 2-panel thing. This was the final syndicated Far Side comic that appeared on January 1st, 1995. Since then, Larson has released a smattering of new Far Side comics, but has not returned to syndication or any consistent production schedule. I'd show you some of the new stuff, but there's a very stern warning on the website. It's like, don't fucking put this anywhere. I'll kill you.
But you can look it up if you want.
I'll haunt your dreams. So not really many photos of Gary Larson exist. There's like a handful out there in the world. He kind of has this belief, I think, shared by many in his profession, that cartoonists should be sort of like anonymous figures in the cultural zeitgeist. Like they shouldn't really be front and center. It should be the cartoons. So you can't find any pictures of him as a kid. So this is literally the closest I could find. This is like the youngest looking Gary Larson picture. And he looks like he's like at least 40 there. So I don't know. You'll have to just use your imagination. But he was born in Washington State on August 14th, 1950 to a car salesman and a secretary. I don't know if it was the car salesman's secretary, but that's who they were. He holds a degree in pretty much the most useless major you can have, communications, from Washington State University. He plays jazz guitar and he plays the banjo.
Sick.
He's an environmentalist who believes strongly in protecting wildlife from human encroachment.
So he smokes weed.
Yeah.
You're telling me Gary Larson gets high is what you're letting me know.
I mean, didn't the Far Side already kind of let you know that?
Did he? If he still doesn't watch,
I always suspected, but now you're just confirming it.
He's married to an anthropologist named Tony Carmichael. Not Tony is a woman's name. He's not gay or anything. He's not one of them.
He's not one of those.
Would it matter, TJ? Would you have?
He ain't one of those.
Why do you have to even say he's not gay, TJ?
Well, because I just thought people might hear Tony and be like, LGBT, blah, blah, blah. No.
Oh, my God, dude.
What?
You are making...
TJ, that's not why you said it, dude.
You are making the most offensive possible episode about Gary Larson.
Why? What did I do?
Super offended right now.
There's no pictures out there of him. That probably means he's reclusive and would rather not have people showing his picture. And you just got pictures and pictures and pictures of him.
Well, he doesn't want people showing his fucking comics either. So he's kind of put me in a hard position on this one. I don't know what to fucking tell him.
He doesn't want people to show his comics. But, dude, I can make an argument for that, too.
So early on in their relationship, she became his business manager, his wife. So,
Oh, well, that's why he can't. She's probably the one that doesn't want to retire,
Gary, and spend more time with me.
Gary's like, oh, okay.
Oh, yes, mistress. Sorry, Gary.
But I have
what's his
tons
sycophantic nature towards Gary?
I love Gary Larson, dude.
Sorry, Gary.
What is your fucking problem? Wait,
Scotty didn't
so I'm not allowed to fucking admire a great man that fucking changed the course of goddamn history? Is that what you're saying?
He's a litigious freaking little whiny baby. No,
I mean he might have his
flaws.
I don't give a fuck.
Here's his picture. Oh, Gary, you gonna cry about that too?
Here's another picture.
Oh, Gary, why don't you sue us, please?
He might.
You need to get over it, Scotty. Get the fuck over it, Scotty.
I ain't get over nothing. I'll get over when Gary gets over it.
So in the 1970s, Gary was working at a record store, decided that he pretty much hated the fucking job. He decided to give cartooning a try. He's like, yeah, I'm a communications major. I got a job at a record store. It sucks.
I gotta do something.
Gotta figure out a more practical career. I know, I'll be a cartoonist.
Yeah.
Right? So not a very practical dude. But didn't seem like it hurt him in life.
Fuck practicality.
In 1976, he drew 6 cartoons, submitted them to a Pacific Search, which is a Seattle-based magazine, or it was at the time. So in 1979, I mean, they did publish the cartoons, by the way. In 1979, he was picked up by the Seattle Times for a strip called Nature's Way. So to supplement his income, Larson worked at the Humane Society as a cruelty investigator. So not a fun job.
By the way, in the document it says humans.
Well, it said human, whatever.
Yeah, the human society.
No one needs to know what the fuck is in the document, all right?
So what?
Fuck you, punk bitch.
Why are you mad, TJ? Oh, man.
You're a punk bitch. I'm suing you, Scotty. I'm litigious as well.
You're smacked. I talked about your little hero, Gary.
I'm litigious as well, Scotty.
Oh, Gary. I'm sorry, Gary. Scotty didn't mean it.
Larson was
he's definitely a fan of this picture too, man. Ingratiate yourself harder.
He's become baldy here, TJ.
I mean, he's been bald since he was born.
Get thou down, baldy.
This is from a TV interview, like the only one that I think even exists. By the way, so.
Is that also on lockdown?
It's not. It's on YouTube. I didn't feel the need to pull it because we already have enough about him, but
sure.
So Larson, even though he got in his Nature's Way strip published in the Seattle Times, he still wasn't making much money. You know, the cartoonist, especially one that's only published in a single paper, is not cleaning up.
No.
Larson still wasn't making much money, so he decided to try to sell his comic to a bigger newspaper. So he just happened to be on vacation in San Francisco. And he figured, while I'm here, I might as well pitch my work to the San Francisco Chronicle. And basically, to his surprise, they're just immediately like, oh, yeah, we love it. They bought the strip, promoted it for a syndication. They said the one thing they didn't like was they didn't like the name Nature's Way. They're like, that sucks. We're going to call it The Far Side,
That's a good idea.
And so unlike Charles Schultz, who really resented the name Peanuts being imposed upon him, because Charles Schultz did not like the name Peanuts. He felt like it has nothing to fucking do with my strip. And he really resented that name for pretty much his entire life. So that's kind of like a famous thing. But Gary Larson did not give a fuck that they changed the name of his comic. He basically said they could have called it Revenge of the Zucchini People for all I cared. He just didn't give a fuck. He's like, yeah, you published my work. I don't give a fuck. Call it fucking Gary's Shit Corner.
As long as Gary gets paid, he's fine.
Why is he all fucked up about it now then?
I don't know. He just doesn't give a fuck about the name, I guess. He gives a fuck about the work, but he doesn't care what it's called. I don't know.
I'll send you $1 in the mail for this episode. How about that?
He's very selective with what he cares about. I should never even mention that he's litigious, because now that's all Scotty can talk about. Every fucking section I go through, he's litigious. He's litigious? Oh my God, he's so fucking sensitive about it.
I'm going to send Gary $1 in the mail so we can show this episode happens.
Good stuff, Scotty. Good fucking contribution to the episode.
What's the cost of a newspaper?
Oh, man, that's going to get me to stop, TJ.
Yeah.
Let me mock you for this. I'm
going to mock you hard because you fucking got nothing to say about nothing. You're like, oh, man, you're still stuck on the first paragraph.
Because I'm pissed off that Gary Larson would do that shit when he's a multimillionaire. Fuck him.
He's a jerk. He's a fucking...
he is.
Do you want to know his net worth, Scotty?
What is it?
I'll tell you at the end.
All right.
What do you guess it is, though?
Far Side was really popular. Probably at least $100 million.
$1 trillion.
$1 trillion.
Fuck, $1 trillion?
So he's not exactly like a super controversy magnet or anything. There's been some controversy. Some people used to write into the papers and stuff and be like, this is fucking gross. This is offensive. Because, you look at the comic landscape at the time. It's like,
very saccharine.
Right. And
most of it was. There was some subversive shit going on in the 80s.
There was like Doonesbury and stuff like that. It wasn't like totally devoid of anything.
But there was a lot of that. Most of it was just sappy nonsense.
Blondie and fucking shit like that. Yeah. But this comic kind of got him in some hot water. You see two monkeys in a fucking tree. I think they're supposed to be chimps, and the wife chimp is like, well, another blonde hair, conducting a little more research with that Jane Goodall tramp. And
so,
yeah.
Who got mad at this?
Yeah, I don't get it.
Well, the Jane Goodall Foundation got pissed.
Oh my God, dude. The whole point is not that the monkey is fucking Jane Goodall. It's that he's getting accused of it because he went home and one of your hairs is on him.
Yeah. So the Jane Goodall Foundation wrote like a angry screed against Gary Larson. You know, he's a sexist. He's a fucking piece of shit. Blah, 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 blah.
I thought it was going to be a bunch of Christians mad about some evolution message or some crap. Dude.
No, nothing like that.
The Jane Goodall Foundation was actually wasted time, energy, and effort on a comic that's like, whatever.
Yeah, they got pissed. They're like,
when did this outrage happen? 2019?
No, this is in the 80s.
But I thought wokeness was this brand new scourge on humanity, bro.
No,
not at all.
It's just the name wokeness being ascribed to it is new, but other than that, it's not new.
Wow.
One person who was not actually pissed about it was Jane Goodall, who didn't even know about the comic.
She was out of control of her own foundation.
She was actually over in Africa doing her research and shit.
Oh, she was busy actually doing shit that fucking netted a benefit to humanity rather than being a PR person. Got it.
Yeah. But someone in her organization decided to get pissed on her behalf. So, but of course, Gary Larson, being an animal lover and a conservationist himself, had nothing but admiration for Jane Goodall.
Of course.
He contacted him. He's like wanting to apologize. Like, I'm sorry. I did not mean to offend you with that. But then he found out that, Jane Goodall had been in Africa, had no idea about this comic, had no idea there was some kind of controversy.
Dude, she
about
probably
it.
Ghosted him for like 6 months because she was in deepest Africa and he thought she hated him or some shit.
Probably.
And then she got out and he was probably so relieved to hear from her that like, no, dude, I was too busy actually doing work with monkeys to fucking care about this, but I don't care. Whatever. It was funny. Thanks, Jane.
That's basically what she said. She said it was actually found it amusing, and she actually ended up writing the preface to the Far Side Gallery 5, one of his anthologies.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. Fuck yeah,
she actually wrote about how she praised his creative ideas, and she said that she liked how he often compared the behavior of humans and animals.
Yeah,
kind of blurred the line between the two.
For sure.
She actually found that she really liked his work and actually liked it enough to write a fucking intro for it. And it's probably it all probably came together because some busybody in her organization was like, we are offended that Mrs. Goodall's name would be besmirched in this manner.
See, now that's a cool thing, dude. You know what? Like, she gets attacked and they make a comic about her. She finds out about it years later. And it's like, this is lame. This is stupid. I don't care at all. And then ends up writing basically the introduction to his book.
So what made the Far Side stand out as a comic strip? So I'm going to quote the New Yorker here. Within its single panel, its contents were entirely unpredictable. It had no recurring characters, no ongoing narratives other than life on Earth. It could depict anyone or anything, and Larson seemed to take it all in, from the office worker to water buffalo, chimpanzee to psychiatrist, Martian to snail. Its specificity alone on the comics page felt radical. So did its attention to the natural world. So basically, in a comic section that's full of a lot of very antiquated shit, Andy Cap and Blondie,
formulaic
and shit, stuff that really seems like it's like a relic of a bygone era.
It's got a narrative to it and shit.
Right. And the Far Side felt like way more modern and edgy. And, just weird.
It just was. I mean, it was just a more incisive way of saying the same thing that these 8-panel cartoons used to say in 8 panels in one panel.
I think it's kind of underestimated just how big of an impact Gary Larson's The Far Side had on humor and just breaking the taboo of weirdness in a lot of ways. Because, there was a very there was still like a lot of residue of like the 1950s, especially in like the cartoons that were being published in like newspapers and shit.
I'll tell you what it was. It was just like simple, refreshing, just off the wall. Like when you read The Far Side, like I could just read those and like it was like endless. It had that like something that you don't see a lot of times. It was like it had that novelty factor of like there's always something different. And the characters as a kid, I remember looking at them, and like it was always so weird to me. One of the big appeals to me was like it didn't look like anything else.
Yeah, it definitely had a unique style and a unique way of presenting itself.
Nothing was ever to keep up on it. Books, you know what I mean? Like no, he didn't draw like there was always like if you look at like most comics, even the stuff that was more subversive, there was always still like a cutesiness to humanity. Like his humans are just like these fat, usually eyeless sort of schlubs where you just see like a brow and they just look so. Or they're just wearing
like glasses that totally obscure their shit. Yeah,
almost none of his characters have eyes unless they are like wide-eyed for some reason. You know.
Yeah, he's not trying to get you to over sympathize with the people in it. He's using the people, interchangeably with objects, and so he's trying to establish that right off the jump. He doesn't want you to get attached to any of these people because them being thrown into a jar with a bunch of other people might be the whole point of the joke.
His work has like a lot of like puns and dad jokes and stuff too, which we kind of I think associate with a degree of lameness, especially these days. But it was definitely like a lot more subversive than what a lot of people are used to, and like really like most of the controversy about his work was just people who just didn't like its attitude. I think that wrote into their papers and were just like, this strip just kind of disturbs me and I feel like weirded out by it and stuff, not even necessarily offended by like some controversial comment or content, but just like not liking the vibe of the fucking
uncomfortable
work.
Well, I think it's because it was reflective of like a lot of the truth in it to them, which are like, people always talk about like, they want the truth. They love the truth. They need the truth. But many people are actually uncomfortable with the truth. So when you get shoved in your face so succinctly, I think it's hard to turn away from that. So it's like I'm just uncomfortable with reality in a sense. So like I want to hide behind something else.
But you think about it, a lot of humor today is derived from randomness and like surrealism, and that's very mainstream.
Oh yeah.
So I think for that reason, The Far Side doesn't necessarily pop to our modern eye the same way it would have in the 80s and 90s. So maybe it doesn't really stand out as a cultural gem in this context as well as it did in that one. But I think that's like often like the fate of like something that's kind of trailblazing. It's like we imitate it so much that it kind of becomes like where we don't really see how unique it was for its time because that kind of humor has become so mainstream now.
If we see a trope from a movie now that was developed in the 70s, we might in the scene in a 2010 movie, we would just go, oh, we grown, but we are, there had to be a genesis to that. And that's kind of, I guess, what you're saying here. It's like, what he did was revolutionary, but now because so much time has passed, it just seems like, oh, well, we've seen this.
You'd have to look at it alongside a fucking Blondie cartoon or, any of the other like strips that were running at this time. Probably, what was that one with the fucking army sergeant in it? The fat one and the skinny
Beetle
one?
Bailey.
Yeah, Beetle Bailey.
Oh, right. Yeah, stuff like that.
You'd have to stick it up next to a Beetle Bailey comic because that's what was running in the fucking shit next to The Far Side. You know what I mean?
In the funny papers.
The funny pages.
I used to love the funnies, dude. I actually grew up reading the funnies. I read them all the way through like the early 2000s, pretty much every day.
I don't even know if those exist anymore. I'm assuming they probably
they do.
Semi-do, but
they do. It's good. I don't know in what form, but they're there.
Now I know this is one of your favorite Far Side.
This is my all-time favorite Far Side.
I pull this here. This is the 100-meter mosey.
I love the intensity in their eyes. You know what I mean? Yeah. He wasn't known for showing eyes, but in this one, he makes a point to because he wants to show how intensely they're moseying.
Yeah, they're just like giving each other the evil eye as they mosey.
Yeah, one of them, the one in the back, it's kind of hard to see in this one. He's got like a little drop of sweat coming off of him, man. He's moseying hard.
There's some hard.
I love it. I just love this.
Down.
Because it just kind of simultaneously points out the absurdity of cowboy culture and sports culture all in one funny little
it's got like a silliness and an innocence to it, but it also kind of speaks to the absurdity of the human condition if you want to look at it more deeply.
Oh, yeah. I mean, every comic kind of does that, I think, a little bit. But yeah, this one is definitely like as deep as you want it to be, which is why I like it so much. It made me laugh so fucking hard when I was a kid. And it's today when I see it, it's just like an old friend coming to visit me. You know, I may not double over in laughter or whatever, but this one's evergreen for me right here, dude.
Here's one of my favorites. This is bobbing for poodles.
Yeah.
It's just like a bunch of alligators at a fucking party there, but and it's just like I love it because it's such a morbid concept, but it's displayed so like innocently, you know.
You know what? This entire one is made by that one alligator that's going like, "Ooh, yeah,
yeah," this ooh face.
Ooh, it's my turn. You know, well, I think it also just is a reflection of how we interact with the world and how we look at things. Because, like, in the Resident Evil 2 remake, they have this thing where it's like the guy's eating a hamburger. It's worse the zombie game, so the zombies ripping apart all these other humans and animals in each other. So it's kind of funny when you looked at it's like, oh, I'm going to eat this giant burger and how we're just so destructive. And I'm going to eat this. It's kind of the same way. It's like if we were doing this, it'd be so innocent for a human. Like, let's bob for apples. But at the same time, you kind of get a juxtaposition of like, oh shit, we're kind of really fucking destructive. But when you take in and put these alligators in, it kind of makes you just think like, oh, it's it can be innocent to us.
What I find it, I was really trying to think about like what it is about Gary Larson's work that makes it stand out. And what it's hard to put into words the vibe of the Far Side, but what I think it does, and I wrote this out. He changes the contextual framework of situations in such a way that we perceive the familiar as bizarre and the bizarre as familiar. So like if there's a horrible, nightmarish, or even just strange situation that's happening in a Larson comic, somehow it's being treated very casually or as if it's just simply the way of things.
Yeah.
Like the 100-meter mosey. It's ridiculous, but it's like, that's just the way of the world.
Universe,
in that
yeah, it's just, that's normal.
And it's like, hey, look how absurd this is. And it kind of draws our attention to like, wait, our world is just as absurd as that. It's just not absurd in the exact same way. And if there's something like mundane in a comic that's like a Gary Larson comic, it's always like to some degree portrayed as like typical and pedestrian, right? Or no, so if there is something that is typical or pedestrian, it's being done by cavemen or cows or amoebas or in some ridiculous fucking context, right?
Of course.
So it's like taking mundane situations and showing their bizarreness, or taking bizarre situations and showing their mundaneness. And it's like almost every Gary Larson comic kind of fits into that.
Yeah, I mean, this one is just straight up like in taking something that people see as totally innocent and putting it in the animal kingdom and going like, yeah, if alligators were the species that became sentient, not us, they'd probably bob for little fucking furry creatures and think it was totally normal. You know what I mean? So it really kind of contextualizes our weird little ritual in a way that is kind of funny.
It is, yeah.
It makes it off-putting to look at and to think about, but that's just, it kind of makes you question your perspective in the animal kingdom.
Error.
Denied.
Error.
Damn, dude. Somebody.
Of course, for a TJ episode, it's got to be an error.
I'm glad you didn't show that one because apparently Gary found it last night after you did your research and fucking.
Yeah, it's like, not on my watch, bitch.
Dude, I thought you said there were no pictures of this guy. Dude, this guy's been photographed more than me.
I have pulled. For this episode, I have pulled pretty much every picture I could find of Gary Larson, and I think I reused one at some point because they ran out.
Like I was going to try and be defensive of his privacy shit, but it looks like he let people into his like home where he draws.
This is for some kind of like high profile piece and shit.
TJ, look, I gotta apologize to Gary Larson because I forgot something. I forgot that you made this episode. Gary Larson's probably not litigious at all. He's probably a really nice guy, but you framed him incorrectly. The shoddy research you've done for this episode is framed him incorrectly. Look at this big smile. This guy's an asshole.
This is a friendly guy.
He seems like a friendly guy. You lied about him.
So
TJ.
What made Gary Larson retire? Even in 1985, 10 years before he retired, Larson let it be known that he planned to walk away at some point. He said, I don't necessarily see myself drawing cartoons for the next 25 years. I'm interested in jazz. I play the guitar. So here's my fantasy. I'm on the bandstand of a smoke-filled club in New York. Joe Pass is on one side of me, Django Reinhardt on the other. I have on dark shades, a cigarette's hanging from my mouth. I have 100 times the ability I have today. I finish my solo and Joe Pass starts his. I lean over and say, come on, Joe, get it together. So he has this fantasy about being this like great jazz guitarist and stuff, but he's kind of being a little jokey with it, but he's also kind of letting people know, like, I don't necessarily want to be a fucking cartoonist for the rest of my life.
Well, I respect that, especially for a guy that the massive success he had. I mean, like at certain points, like I don't want to just do the same thing forever.
And by 1994, Larson thought the series The Far Side was getting repetitive, and he didn't want to enter what he called the graveyard of mediocre comics or mediocre cartoons, which is vast if you guys have ever looked at the funny pages. Yeah. So he retired the strip on January 1st, 1995, when he was just 44 years old. Since retiring from The Far Side, Larson has done occasional cartoon work, including magazine illustrations and promotional artwork for The Far Side merchandise. But for the most part, he's retired from public view. So a few notable exceptions. In 2003, he did come out of retirement briefly to do a cover for The New Yorker. They just contacted me like, we want you to do a cover. And he felt like The New Yorker was prestigious enough that he didn't want to be like, no, fuck you, The New Yorker.
Well, they offered him the cover too.
Right. It's like, we want you to be the cover of The New Yorker for a cartoonist. It's a big deal. So,
and I mean,
like,
look,
yeah, I'll do it.
It didn't seem like Gary Larson is totally opposed to doing stuff in the Far Side universe. He doesn't want to do it on a regular basis or have to be an obligation, just when he feels like doing it. When inspiration strikes.
In 2010, he voiced himself on an episode of The Zombie Simpsons.
Kind of funny.
We could probably get away with like a morsel of that. Let me make sure I get part of him talking. There we go.
Yeah, it's about to open his mouth there.
Fired! I was retired until I got the call from Capital City Nuclear.
That's probably about as much as we can get away with.
Who's on The Simpsons? Man, there's some shoddy fucking research, TJ.
What?
Hey, look, he's on The Simpsons. You said, like, man, you told me a lot of lies.
How's it shoddy research? What?
How's it shoddy research? Let me explain it to you, TJ. You told me this guy's super legit. This guy's a jerk. This guy's mean to everybody. He's on The Simpsons. He was the Zombie Simpsons.
I never said he was mean to everybody. I just said he's litigious.
You said he was a real jerk, TJ.
I never said he was a jerk.
You said he went after people, TJ.
He did.
It sounds like kind of like a jerk thing to do.
Well, I don't know what to tell you. He's a complicated guy. You're going to have to reconcile that. And you kind of agree with us that he was
kind of an asshole, too. You said that, but he seems like a real nice guy.
A lot of people thought he was kind of a jerk. So,
well, I think you're lying.
That wasn't Gary's only foray into animation, however. He also created an animated special in 1994 called Tales from the Far Side, which aired on CBS as a Halloween special. There was also a sequel produced in 1997, which was only released in the UK, never aired in the US.
Oh.
This is probably a little easier to get away with.
Maybe.
There's a monster that comes up to this kid. He's looming over him and stuff. And I'll just show you how it plays out here. Gonna get him. What happened there? His friends had the exploding kid, guaranteed to fool your friends.
Damn, got him.
So, like, the whole thing was just an elaborate prank. This monster thought he was gonna eat this kid, but nope. His fucking asshole friends are just like, see, that's me and that's you guys in the closet. Hey, you thought you was gonna get to eat that kid? Nope.
Gotcha, TJ.
You're the stupidest monster I know, TJ.
Dude, that's actually me. Of a bitch. You're the one that ghost storied me for like 6 months.
That's true. I did, yeah.
You talking about, dude? I'm not known for my elaborate pranks, bro.
Yeah, but you guys like to give rations as shit. That's
different than pranking.
So Gary Larson has a net worth of around $75 million, thanks to not only the sale of Far Side books, but the popularity for years of Far Side shirts, calendars, T-shirts, prints, and other assorted merchandise. At the age of 71, it seems unlikely that Larson will ever fully come out of retirement, but he has established a strong web presence at thefarside.com, where he offers his works in a setting that he can control, which is apparently very fucking important to him. I think that he's probably one of the most influential creative people in modern history, especially in his medium. And he deserves a lot of props for what he's brought to the forefront of the zeitgeist with his groundbreaking, brilliant, and truly inimitable comic strip. And that's my Gary Larson episode. Fuck you all. Boom.
Deep fat fried. Deep fat fried. Deep fat fried.